Hello, Jim. How are you?
Good, Sergey. How are you? Good to see you again.
Good to see you too. For those of our viewers who don't know, we are speaking with Jim Roche. He's one of the leading experts on car service, and he has agreed to do the exclusive interview for Russian Association of Automotive Dealers, and let us know a lot of interesting information about the car service. And my name is Sergey Namovsky. I'm also an expert on automotive business. And Jim is also an author of two best-selling books, Fast Lane and Fast Break. There they are. And we had an honor of, turn that around, here you go. We had an honor of translating and publishing them in Russia. And they have received very positive reception. So now we get a chance to ask Jim some questions. And let's go, Jim.
It's an honor to be here. Let's go.
Thank you, Jim. We have prepared some questions for you. And the first question is actually pretty simple. Sounds pretty simple. Service department in Russia is a key department for the car dealerships. It's probably generating the lion's portion of the profits. How important is the service department for the dealerships in the United States?
Yes. So like Russia, service in the United States generates the majority of total dealership gross profit. In 2019, that wasn't always the case. In 2019, though, service generated 50.2% of total dealership gross. So for the first time in over 40 years, more than half was generated by the service department. But it's also a deeper importance, if you will, because not only does service generate more than half of the profits, but it also generates significant vehicle sales. Based on a study by Cox Automotive, they found that if a customer is in the market to purchase a new vehicle and has visited service just once in the last 12 months, they're 74% likely to buy from that dealership. If they haven't visited service in the last 12 months, they're only 35% likely to buy. So, you know, the old sales sells the first one and service sells the rest is really, really true. And of course, that's not counted in the gross profit calculation of service. So it's a much larger contributor than the gross profit contribution might imply.
I see. So let me just recoup that. The service department in the United States accounts for more than half of the profit of the entire dealership. And it's a major loyalty driver to the dealership. The customers who have visited service at least once over the last year period are more than twice as likely to purchase another car from that same dealership than customers that did not visit the service department.
That's exactly correct.
Okay, now we got some tough questions.
Uh-oh, okay.
Yes, so you better be ready for them.
Let me take a drink of coffee.
Yes, you may need that. Last year was very unusual, to say the least, in automotive business. Yes, it changed many things. And one of the trends that has increased significantly is the service pickup and delivery. And some car dealerships, like for instance, Paragon, Honda, and Acura, they claim that car pickup and delivery not only helps them increase the profit per RO, actually they claim that it doubles the profit per RO, but it also increases customer satisfaction. Do you feel that this trend is there to stay, and it may actually become the service standard of the future for car dealerships?
That's a really good question, Sergey. In the long term, yes. In the shorter term, I think it's uncertain. The data is that currently 59% of dealers in the United States report offering pickup and delivery, so a little more than half. But this is down 12% from April of 2020. So we've seen a decline. This is due to the perceived expense on the part of the dealership to provide pickup and delivery. But I think that they threw completely. For example, we all buy things online now, and it's very common to be charged a convenience fee. You could charge a convenience fee for pickup and delivery. Right now in the States, that's not a common practice. 47% of consumers said they'd be happy to pay $20 for pickup and delivery. Well, that would significantly offset the expense. But that hasn't happened yet. Nonetheless, I think that the customer loyalty metrics are just undeniable. 91% of vehicle owners said they would prefer a dealership that offered pickup and delivery versus one that did not. 91%, almost unanimous. So I don't know how you can ignore that statistic in the long term, but the short-term data would imply that we see dealers easing off of that. So we'll have to wait and see.
So it's actually, that's something that I did not realize. Even though 59% of the dealerships claim that they offer the service, when I say claim, that they may say they do, but in reality they don't, or they sort of some they offer it, some they don't. But that's actually a 12% decrease from pre-COVID level, which is unusual. But you still think that in the long term, it's something that is going to become mainstay and will
Yes.
grow. Okay.
Absolutely. I mean, the near term, obviously there's some short-term thinking involved since it's dropped from 71% to 59%. But in any business, if 91% of the customers said they would favor you if you did it, eventually you're going to do it. And frankly, if you don't, someone will.
Well, the next question sort of arises out of the previous one. There is a service that is becoming more commonplace, and it's a mobile service. When they come to your place of residence or place of business and they fix your car. And I actually watched online, and apparently that has been offered by new car dealerships as well as the independent shops. Actually, independent shops offer more of it than the car dealerships right now. Now, how do you compare this approach in service versus pickup and delivery? What are the pros and cons of each?
Sure. Well, I'm a huge fan of mobile service. I really think that dealers need to adopt a service anywhere approach to the business. Really, you can only, the way that they should be approaching delivery of service is, hey, we will get the vehicle to service, or we will get our service to the vehicle, right? They need to adopt that mindset. I like the mobile experience because it really is the ultimate inconvenience when you think about it. So I think all dealers should be adding it to their service offerings. Again, just like pickup and delivery, I think that charging a small convenience fee is perfectly reasonable. People are accustomed to paying a convenience fee. And really, when you're delivering more value, it's perfectly reasonable as long as you're not charging an outlandish amount. The pros of mobile service, again, a fantastic experience. Obviously, it builds great customer loyalty. And these days, every consumer wants a technology-enhanced experience, right? And since most mobile service is app-based, you're getting that technology-enhanced experience, which I think is very, very important. The cons are not all services can be performed by mobile service, right? Only there are 300 or 400 of the most common maintenance and other types of services. In the United States, typically they're using entry-level technicians, not journeyman technicians. And so you get a lack of personal touch, or that lack of a customer service personality So you kind of lose the human connection. I actually know of some mobile service providers who they require the technician not to talk to the customer. I know it sounds funny, but there is logic behind it. One is they feel in a lot of cases maybe they don't have the right personality, but the second is they want them moving quickly because there are so many appointments, and stopping to talk to the customer can slow you down, and then you miss the next appointment, and then that's a cascade. You miss every appointment after that, and then you have a whole bunch of not happy customers. There's a service technician shortage. So trying to implement mobile service can be challenging because of the tech shortage. And this is particularly relevant in Russia, Sergey. It's hampered by severe weather, the delivery of mobile service. So there's a whole bunch of factors that make it smaller. So I think you can fit the two together quite nicely. I mean, mobile service for things that that fit nicely into a mobile service delivery, but it's not all services. Pickup and delivery for the other ones. And for someone who wants or likes to come to the dealership, why then you've got your facility there. But again, dealers need to take that holistic approach and meet the customer wherever the customer wants to be met. That's really the key.
I see. So you see the mobile service as the sort of a natural extension of pickup and delivery in the sense that they both offer convenience and time saving. And not all the, obviously not, just as you said, not all the services can be done remotely, like the transmission repair or the engine repair cannot be done. But the majority of maintenance, like the brakes or the rotors or something else, can be done.
Sure, oil changes,
Oil
change
changes,
tire,
that's right.
there's a whole series of services that don't need to be done at the dealership.
So you see that as the growing trend, and the another matter of convenience which may be brought to the customers.
I think so. Pickup and delivery is much more prevalent right now than mobile service. Mobile service adoption amongst franchise dealers is lagging well behind pickup and delivery in terms of the number of dealers that are offering it. But I think over time we have to evolve in that direction.
I see. As I said, I see more independent shops offering the service right now than the car dealers, and no wonder we see only 1 out of 3 service visits done at the dealerships. The next question is sort of interesting, and you are probably one of the very few people around that may answer it. Obviously, the U.S. Car market, be that service or sales, is one of the most advanced markets in the world. And that's where the new services and technologies usually pop up, and then they migrate to Europe or Asia. Are you aware, or do you know of any services that have not achieved the widespread use as of yet, but you see a big potential of them in the future? I know you work with artificial intelligence yourself, but this sort of technologies or anything else, what do you see coming out in the future?
Sure. Well, I think the overarching thing is that we all want to manage our lives through this device, right? All of us want a technology enhanced experience, and the younger generations in particular that are coming up, this is just part of their lives. They don't view these devices as technology. They view them like you and I view a toaster. It's just an appliance. It's something that becomes woven into the fabric of our lives. So in order to generate loyalty, which really is the ultimate objective, we must be delivering a technology enhanced experience. So there are a variety of technologies out there, and in the United States even, sadly, most of them have not reached majority adoption. So let's talk a little bit about, online appointment scheduling has reached near saturation. About 89% of dealers report having online appointment scheduling, which is great. That's a great start. But it really falls off from there. So if you look at Service lane check-in, for example. You know, I arrive at the dealership, somebody greets me with a tablet and checks me in. Only 48% of dealers report having that today. So there's a huge gap between appointment scheduling at 89% and service lane check-in at 48%. That number is coming up, but that's where we're at today. Remarkably, keep in mind, my next comment is in the context of when we transact online, to optimize the chance of the consumer transacting with you, you always need to tell them three things. Always. Tell me what I need, tell me when I can get it, and tell me how much it costs, right? So you would think that online bill pay at the dealership would be widespread, yet only 45% of dealerships report that they offer online bill pay for service. I know. Then in no particular order, I think one of the things that's very important is the ability for the technician, when they make a recommendation, to record a video and deliver it. Only 40% of dealers currently have that. So appointment scheduling, I think, is where it has to begin, and we've got good traction there, but not a good track record with these other key technologies that I think really help deliver the technology enhanced experience. I think all of those will be successful eventually. Now, there is one technology that I think has not gotten traction, and I do not think it will, and that is service kiosks. I don't know if you're familiar, but essentially, you know, in the US, you can go to the service department and it's like an ATM. You know, you don't have to interact with the person, you just interact with the service kiosk. Only 2% of dealerships report having kiosks, and I don't think that's going to win. And the reason is simple, because I think this, Sergey, I think this has become the kiosk. So I don't think that the standalone kiosks are going to win. Anyway, that's a pretty interesting and complex question. Let me pause because I want to make sure I'm answering it completely.
Jim, let me recoup that because that's a very important thing. The online scheduling reached the level of 89% of dealers offering it.
Yep.
Unfortunately, in Russia, online scheduling is barely available. And that
sounds like a big opportunity.
Yeah, that is a big opportunity, and only very few dealer groups offer that, and that's a technology built on their own, and that does not have the. I don't want to go in details, but it doesn't have the details and all the convenience of the US version of this service. But anyway, so online scheduling reached the widespread use. But you see a big growth potential in the area of the tablet use. And I actually saw your presentation at 2018 NADA that shows that tablet use increases the CSI by, if I remember correctly, almost by 70 points. And back in 2018, based on your presentation, I think only 24% of dealers were using it, or something like that. Now it's up to 48% because the advantage is obvious. So, but you still see a big potential for growth. Now, online bill pay is strangely at 45%, even though it's a simple feature, simple technology to use. I'm actually surprised that more people don't offer that.
You almost might think that somebody told dealers, hey, customers prefer to stand in line at the cashier. But it is inexplicable in this day and age that we don't have near 100% adoption of bill pay. I can only assume that the gating factor is integrations with the banks or the online merchants. Although these days, I mean, they make it so simple. But you know, that has got to change. If nothing else, my gosh, I mean, anything you buy online nowadays, I can buy a round trip ticket to China while I'm talking to you using one hand and pay for it. So the idea that I can't pay for my car service is inexplicable. And I think it's an opportunity that we will see vendors rushing in and delivering services to dealers very soon. That's certainly going to be a winner in terms of technology adoption.
Yeah, that was a very strange thing for me to hear, because there are third-party companies that offer a secured way of credit card charge, and the dealer
That's right.
doesn't have to store that information, exposing it to potential hack or anything like that. Now, only 40% of the dealerships use the video of the repair, of the diagnostics or whatever, wherever the video can be used to prove the point or to confirm the repair or to update the status. And you see a potential for big growth there, because videos are, we all know that videos are getting upper hand in sales.
Let's talk about that for a second, Sari, because it's really important. First of all, video open and watch rates, especially if it's a short video, is over 90%. But one of the sources of dissatisfaction amongst consumers was, think of the old process. You brought your car in, it disappeared into the shop, and then somebody came out and said, hey, you need this. No explanation, no proof, and it's $500. And you had to take that leap of faith. And dealers do not have a great reputation when it comes to trust. It's getting better, but historically, it was an area of mistrust. Now you get a technician. So here's a human expert that is showing you on your car. Here, I'm showing you a picture of the brake calipers. And you see here, this worn spot, it suddenly changes the dynamic. And the uptake rate of customers who are buying, last I saw, customer pay overall had increased by 24% for dealers who were using technician videos. But it's even more important than that. The first, of course, is you sell more and you improve trust. That's great. But here there are two other things. The first is because consumers can approve the work with just a touch of a button on their phone when they watch the video, you're suddenly clearing the bays much faster. So the ROs are being completed, they're being closed much quicker because you're not holding for authorization. And the third thing you get is your rental car usage will go down because you're turning the bays in the cars faster. So it's a trifecta. You sell more, you have more throughput through the shop, and your rental car expense goes down. Who wouldn't sign up for that? So I'm a big fan of tech videos.
And especially, you just mentioned, we're going back to the cell phone, to the smartphone. So these days, you don't have to take a movie camera and develop the film. You can just make a short video and SMS it to the customer. So the expense of implementing it is pretty much none. No extra technology is needed. So just a smart business process around it will do. And I can totally see that. And now I want to come to something that, again, you surprised me. The kiosks. I was actually thinking that this is another upcoming trend that is going to be growing. And you are saying only 2% of dealers are using it right now. And I can see why, because you, again, made a direct reference to the smartphone, which sort of, especially if combined with a smart app, with a mobile app, be that dealer's app or the manufacturer's app, provides pretty much the same service. And however, didn't Ford recently announce their own set of kiosks? So there are some OEMs that believe that will be the trend, but your opinion is that this is not going to be a widespread use of those.
There's no data that supports that. I didn't see the Ford announcement. But also just think about that in the context of our larger conversation. If I like pickup and delivery, and most consumers do, and I want mobile service, what role does the kiosk have in that? You can only use the kiosk if you're at the dealership.
That's very interesting. you caught me off guard with that. I'll be honest with you.
Well,
Now,
it's going to be a good day then.
you really did with kiosks. I thought it's an upcoming trend. Uh, let me. You actually a minute ago you said that I want to pause to make sure that you're answering the question. Now I want to ask you: do you know of any technologies that are not used almost at all, but you see a future in them, like artificial intelligence or something that is barely used or it's in process of being tested, like the technology that you are rolling out, the uh, artificial intelligence, as I said, big data, any sort of things that are coming up in the future?
Yeah, I mean, there's all kinds of things that I think seen that I like. So, I mean, we have a technician shortage, right? And dealers are always looking to maintain and improve their profit margins. So I've seen technologies that are laser based that measure tires. They measure tread depth, they measure alignment, and they tell you what the condition of your tires is. They help you sell alignments and new tires. And it's a machine, right? It's not a human being have to do anything. I like that. I've seen some devices that help to start the inspection. So there are robots that take the tires off of the vehicle and do a variety of functions related to around the wheel. I like those. I saw a dealer in Cleveland, Ohio recently. This was really remarkable. He had built a conveyor belt in the service lane, and he could do an oil change in a couple minutes. So he had a conveyor belt, you pulled the car on it, and the conveyor belt moved the cars, and he had different stations. One, he had a device that sucked the oil out of the car from the top, so you didn't have to take off the drain plug. Had all the filters there in a locker that popped open automatically, and it was amazing. The car didn't go into a stationary bay; it moved down a conveyor belt. So there's a big capital expense in doing that, but I loved the idea, and it was very popular with the customers. Of course, any aspect of artificial intelligence or big data where we're using predictive analytics to get ahead of the car breaking down. And that applies not just to service, but I think more importantly, it ripples up the supply chain so that we're building more reliable vehicles. You know, in the last 5 years in the United States, warranty has increased over 38%, an average of 7.7% per year. And I would have thought maybe that was Takata airbags, but actually what that's driven primarily by is more and more technology going in the cars as we go down this path to autonomous vehicles. That trend obviously can't continue. We can't have warranty going up over 7% year over year after year into perpetuity. So at some point, we've got to get a handle on the quality of these new technologies that are coming out. So those are just a couple of thoughts on various things that we're seeing.
Jim, I want to ask you something else, which I feel is very important. And this question is probably the answer to this question, which probably is just as important for the Russian market as it is for the United States market. We all know that car dealers are sort of conservative on implementing advanced technologies, advanced recommendations. There's sort of inertia in the car dealerships, be that lack of initiative or just the way of being used to the certain way of doing things. And you actually write a lot about it in your books. Do you have a suggestion, a recommendation, how to minimize the inertia in implementing advanced recommendations, advanced technologies, best practices in service departments of the car dealerships?
Yes, well, you're right. I mean, my first book I wrote about with Fast Lane, I wrote about what to do. And the second book, Fast Break, I spent some time on how to do it, because that's what we saw was that, people loved the idea of the result they could provide, but they had trouble implementing it. It is not a core strength of dealerships. And you have to have a framework that you operate within, and you have to make sure before you sequentially go through these things that you have the fundamentals in place. The first set of fundamentals when you're making changes is you have to make sure that all leadership is on board, not just one leader, but all the leaders. You have to make sure that all your other people understand what's happening and why. You have to have the technology infrastructure in place. So you can buy whatever technology you want, but if you don't have the Wi-Fi in place in the dealership to make it work, it will fail. You have to make sure that your facility is ready. You have to make sure that you have the capacity in the shop to take on whatever more business, there are only three ways to improve a business fundamentally, right? You can have more customers, or you can sell more per customer, or you can reduce your expenses. Those are the only three things, the only three levers that we have to push and pull. So you have to make sure you have the capacity to take on new business generated by technology. And hardest to do, I think, is you have to make sure culturally that you are ready. And you have to do all of those things first before you move into the second round. The second phase is you have to make sure you have the processes, the training, the marketing, and the scheduling related to doing those things. But again, today that's not a core strength of dealers. So working with outside coaching, making sure you're bringing in training or workshops, I think is essential. Also, you have to select your tools carefully. If you're a dealer group, pilot them in one store for 3 to 6 months, because what you get then is you get the bugs worked out. You have results in your group that are relative to your group, not somebody you've never met. And if you have good results, you also have advocates inside your operation where people can tell others, yes, it worked for us, and here's what it did. And finally, this is just to the dealership and service leaders out there. My personal mantra: lead from the front. Service leaders must understand and use the tools in order to have ultimate credibility with their people.
That's a great answer. I'm sure that you can relate to the importance of that question. And now I have the last question, but that's probably the most interesting one. And you are the perfect person to answer that question, or rather to ask this question to. If you were to build a perfect service department, I don't want to use the phrase where the cost is not a factor. Cost is always a factor, but where you can reasonably expect the return on investment will be good. So if you were to build a perfect service department, could you please list each and every technology that would have to be involved, from the point of marketing to the customer, to delivering the car, write-up process, servicing the car, and delivering the car back to the customer? Every technology that has to be checked in the perfect service department of Jim Roche.
Well, you're right. That's a doozy. We've touched on a few of these previously. So I think it has to start, and you mentioned this, with service marketing. And you have to have a comprehensive multi-channel service marketing tool that is personalized, but more importantly, it delivers your messaging to the customer in whatever channel or channels they wish to be communicated in. So that means email, that means text, that means social media, but also snail mail or telephone calls if that's what the customer wants. You have to meet the customer where they are. I should have said this before I started, Sergey. The attributes of this must be that there is complete integration between the tools, between the modules, and other major dealership systems, right? Nobody wants to ask their people to type information in 2, 3, 4 separate times because the systems don't talk to one another. That's nonsensical today. So start with, it's got to have complete integration. Then the first step is service marketing. Service marketing must be completely integrated to your service appointment scheduling. So if I've delivered an email to you that says, you need to come in for your 30,000 mile service. There needs to be a button in that email that says click here to schedule. And the scheduling should be quick, minimize number of steps, but also relatively complete appointment. It must also be integrated with your shop scheduling so that when I make the appointment, I really am making an appointment. It's not an appointment request form where I fill out something and it gets emailed to somebody at the dealership. The system needs to be looking at, when you schedule an appointment, there are two aspects to scheduling. There's the human aspect. I'm scheduling the vehicle owner to talk to a service advisor. And then there is the machine aspect. I'm scheduling the vehicle to go into a bay in the service department and be worked on by a qualified technician. It needs to take into account those two segments when it comes to scheduling. So great. My service marketing is integrated to my appointment scheduling. My appointment scheduling must be integrated to the next step, my service lane check-in. I've got tablets on the service lane, and they do license plate recognition. So there are cameras in the service lane that see the license plate. They pull the record. So when you walk up to the customer, you can say, "Good morning, Sergey. I see you're here for your 9 a.m. appointment. Got your 2020 Mustang. And I see here that you requested a 30,000 mile service. So I have validated, I have rewarded the customer for using our technology process, right? I've rewarded them. I walked to their car, I greeted them, and I stated, I know who you are and why you're here." Then you take the tablet and you do a quick vehicle walk around. You note the mileage, of course, but you also check for, do they need wipers? Does it look like they need tires? And you use the tablet to take pictures of any condition concerns regarding the vehicle. So they don't come back and say, "Hey, that scratch wasn't here before." Well, it really was. Here's a picture of the car that we took this morning. Your check-in tablets should have multiple functions that the service advisors can use. So for example, I should be able to two-way text the customer when I'm working throughout the day. I should also be able to either automatically or via the service advisor send you status updates through the tablet or the system, and the customer should be able to change their status in whatever way. When the vehicle goes into the service bay, you need to be able to do an MPI, multi-point inspection, using the same system. And as we discussed previously, that module must also include a way for the technician to make a video that then gets automatically sent to the customer that says, "Here's something I found on your car that I think you want to take care of." And it's got to include pricing, parts and service pricing, right? I don't want to send something to somebody and say, "I think it's around." No, you need to be given a precise quote, and the customer needs to be able to approve it online. I mean, I tell the story all the time of when it comes to pricing, and you heard me say before, you need to tell consumers three things. What do I need? When can I get it? And what does it cost? It's silly, but if I wanted to take a plane flight to Moscow, would I go to, would I do business with the airline that said, "Hey, I have the flight that you want on the day and the time you want, and I'll tell you what it costs when you get to the airport"? That's not how it works anymore. You have to tell them exactly what it costs. Now, as a component of this, your system should also offer the consumer the ability to do mobile check-in. All right, so that they don't have to come to the dealership. They don't have to deal with people if they don't want to. Of course, you want to have online bill pay. So the system delivers the final repair order with the dollar amount to the consumer, and they can pay online if they want. Your system should also have redelivery, so I can inform the dealership of when I've arrived. And the system automatically triggers a porter or someone to bring the vehicle around, or the service advisor, and do the redelivery, explain what was done, explain the invoice, ask if there's any questions, make sure the car is clean, and then send the customer on their way. And then finally, you need to be able, based on all of this, to send a satisfaction survey to the customer and at least ask 2 questions, right? I've seen people send these surveys that are 10, 15, 20 questions. Who does that? Very few people do that. But You can get to the nub of it if you ask two questions. Were you completely satisfied? Would you refer us to someone that you know? You don't have to refer them, but if a customer says, I'm completely satisfied and I would refer you, they're a happy customer. You can ask more, but those are the two fundamental questions. So I think off the top of my head, those are the things that I would want to have in order to deliver a great technology enhanced service experience. Of course, as we already discussed, also want integration to pick up and delivery. I also want mobile service. But in terms of thinking about the service process itself, I think those are the major components.
Jim, since this, I find this of great importance, let me make sure that I get this right. So let me recoup that. We start with service marketing and the importance of it. And I will again, I think I remember another presentation of yours. Don't remember exactly where I saw it, but I know it was yours. That only about 46% of customers know that, or didn't know that their dealership offers online scheduling or something like that. So if they don't know, they wouldn't be able to use it. So service marketing has to be used not just to market your the availability of your great service experience, but to communicate through whichever channel customer prefers, be that SMS or email or phone call or however. So it's not just to present your product, but it's to make the customer aware of your product. So the service marketing, and that must be integrated with online scheduling. So if they get the online, if they get an email, there has to be a button. If they have an SMS, if they get an SMS, there has to be a button. If there is your website, there has to be a button. So the other thing is all this has to be, the next feature would have to be the service lane check-in, which must include the tablets. Now, I want to, I noted that you sort of split it in three separate technologies. One is, we'll call it a connected shop, when the customer shows up on the lot and the video camera reads the tag number or the car and identifies the customer. So there is less time required to greet them. Hello, Mr. Smith, and we're glad to see you, and we already know what you need. So the automatic identification of the customer. The other one is a tablet, which should have multiple functions, including videos and photos, which, as we spoke before, will help sell the customer the service, will reduce liability by being able to prove that, Mr. Customer, there was a dent here when you already came, so we didn't put that dent in here, we didn't put a scratch. And most importantly, from the same tablet, it gives the service consultant or service advisor an ability to communicate with the customer by two-way SMS messages or email, or however, again, customer prefers to.
That's all correct. One other aspect to keep in mind is that what you're doing is that you are speeding up the write-up process overall, right? So by already having the customer information, why they're there, their name and everything, and walking to the vehicle, you are getting the customer in and out faster, which drives up customer satisfaction. And I didn't mention this before, but the tablet should also have your menu. So, you know, anything that the customer you see is due, or if they say they're coming in, you know, because they have a, you know, they have a recall, but they're at, you know, 30,600 miles. If you have your menu on the tablet, then you can sell them a 30,000 mile service. So it's also a sales tool.
I will take a liberty of adding something to your huge experience. I assume that it might be helpful to have a customer service history on that same tablet, because the customer may have rejected some sort of a service last time they were in, and this time you say, well, last time your brake pads were only, you know, barely passed inspection. This time you really should do that. So if having access to the customer service history may actually help upsell or actually increase the service loyalty or trust.
Yes, absolutely. That's a good ad. Thank you.
See that? Okay, I'm proud of myself. I'm proud.
You are an expert, sir.
Anyway, the status updates. The next thing should be an MPI, multi-point inspection. Every car should go through a multi-point inspection, and that increases the level of trust, because if it passed and the dealership has an ability to tell the customer, listen, we checked your entire car for free and it really doesn't need anything, then that customer will be impressed. Next time they come in and if the dealership says, well, this time you need this and that, there's going to be an increased level of trust. So the MPI helps sell and helps improve the customer trust, and also reduces the liability, because if they miss something and the wheel falls off the car, that, you know, the customer will say, well, I was just at your dealership and now the wheel fell off, and they didn't know. So the mobile check-in would be the next technology. Well, it's not the next technology, but it's a parallel technology. The customer should be able to check in on a smartphone if there is an app, not the kiosk. You know, it doesn't help us. If they're already at the dealership, may as well talk to the service writer with a tablet. And the online bill pay. Red deliveries helps the dealership communicate with the customer about the best way to get the car back to the customer. And you also put a very big importance on something that may not be a technology related item, but it's I can relate to the importance of it, and that would be a must-have item in the Jim Roche's Perfect Service Department. That's a satisfaction survey, and in reality, it should have a minimum of 2 questions: were you completely satisfied, and will you refer us to other customers? That would be the minimum set of questions.
And so if the answer to either of those questions is no, then obviously that's someone in service leadership wants to talk to that customer, right? Because you're in pursuit of mundane perfection. And if it wasn't perfect, if the customer answered no to either of those questions, let's have a conversation. And lots of things hang off of that. Obviously, customer satisfaction drives loyalty, which is repeat visits to service. Customer satisfaction drives loyalty and additional vehicle sales. It also drives your reputation management online. So there are lots of things that hang off of managing that customer satisfaction.
So this is important. So this satisfaction survey, reduced to the minimum of those 2 important questions, should not be a mechanical voice like sometimes you get a call, and those are very annoying. If you would rate us from 1 to 10, I would rate you 1, and then I would rate that, and then nothing happens. So it seems like they note it somewhere, but they don't do anything. This should be an actionable item. If they're happy, thank you very much for your business. If you're not happy, that goes into some next processing business process, and you get a phone call from the manager or from somebody, and they try to rectify the problem. And I also,
Sergey, actually, since you framed this as Jim's perfect ideal service department, ideally, when I did the redelivery to the customer and they were in front of me, I would use my tablet to ask the 2 questions. And if the answer to either question was no, it would alert a service leader immediately who would talk to the customer before they left, ideally.
Well, that's a great thought. That is a great thought. While it's fresh in customers' mind, and they didn't get a chance to sort of grow some negative feeling within them.
Right. Now they haven't driven the car yet, so you're mostly looking at analyzing the process and their satisfaction up to that point. But anyway, that's Jim's perfect technology enhanced experience.
And I want to also mention that everything that is included that we discussed within Jim Roche's Perfect Service Department, which I actually totally agree with, that would be a perfect service department, must include, on the dealer side, obviously, not on the customer side, but on the dealer side, a seamless integration between the systems, because we don't want to annoy the customer or the service writer or anyone else to transfer the data from CRM to DMS, from DMS into the tablet. So it all has to be integrated in one business process, goes from here to there, from there to there. And as the data is added, it goes into those spots where it should be accessed. Well, Jim, this is great. I think this was a very, very useful information. And I want to thank you on behalf of ROAD, which is Russian Association of Automotive Dealers, on behalf of Russian automotive community as a whole, and on behalf of myself, for your time and effort in helping us get this very valuable knowledge.
Thank you, Sergey. It's always a pleasure to talk to you, and thank you everyone at ROAD. I appreciate the interest. I had hoped to be there in person, but I hope sometime soon that will be the case.
Jim, we would love to have you here in Moscow, and we certainly would be able to make your trip very useful for us and interesting for you. But unfortunately, for reasons which are beyond our control, it will have to wait.
Yes, hopefully sometime.
Sometime, yes. Jim, thank you again for your time, and have a wonderful day.
Thank you. You too.